Basically, all the bills that are processed in our House and then also in the Senate that flip over and come to our House come to the floor, manage the floor. The chairmen and women and their bills that come out of their committees that come to the floor for processing work closely with the Speaker of the House, along with those chairmen.
And so one of the bills that you guys looked into was 374. Was it 12 years ago that this was actually approved by the Senate, and now we're just getting it started with medical marijuana?
Yeah, Senate Bill 374. About 13 years ago, the state amended its constitution to say that those who are in need of medical cannabis were allowed to have it. Unfortunately, in that period of time, we neglected to pass state laws that would provide a mechanism for those patients to get that medicine.
And so the mechanism is now kind of being established within different counties now at this point. Nye County was one of them today, kind of looking at zoning and licensing. We're allowed one dispensary here.
That's correct. The dispensary, which is in state statute, is basically one dispensary per 40 pharmacies in your jurisdiction. And so that's why in Nye County it came out to be one, and it also goes by population as well. In Clark County, there was a total of 40 for that. So in Nye County, you're permitted to have one dispensary per the statute.
And does the dispensary mean the same thing as the pharmacy, or is the dispensary is dispensing to pharmacies?
Yeah, dispensary is basically a storefront for those with medical marijuana cards or their caregivers to be able to go in and buy that medical cannabis for them. Policy-wise, the state, we wanted to have these storefronts for this product to look and feel like a doctor's office or pharmacy.
And that's different than the cultivating facilities.
That's correct. Cultivating facilities are basically it. They grow the product. And in statute, there is no provision provided on the number of cultivators going to be permitted or licensed in the state. That's going to be taken care of through the licensing regulatory process through the state.
And that would depend on how much that one dispensary needs?
No, as of discussions that have been occurring, there is not going to be one county has to provide their own cannabis for their own dispensaries. So, for instance, it's not going to be because Nye County has one dispensary, then Nye County has to have a cultivator to provide for that dispensary. That dispensary, as any business owner, should be able to buy their cannabis from wherever in the state.
So Nye County could provide for Clark County could provide for Nye County, and that's where the licensing comes in, right? That's where people are trying to get their licensing?
Well, people are trying to get licensing in 4 different categories: cultivation, dispensaries, production, meaning edibles, making the product, blending the product into edible items or smokable items, vapors, and then testing labs is the 4th. And so people are vying for these licenses to participate in this business in various parts of the state. The question has been arising is whether or not one county can prohibit another county's product from coming into their county to sell to their dispensaries.
So is that issue still on the floor?
It's something that's been discussed. It's something that's currently being considered in Clark County. I don't believe that is the spirit necessarily of the law, and I think there may be some legal ramifications of trying to do something like that.
Let's talk a little bit about what District Attorney Brian Coonsey was talking about today. With the Prump Regional Planning District, the Board of County Commissioners was setting up some zoning today, but he also spoke about the state of Nevada coming in if within that, if they decide that they're not going to make a law or zoning laws with outside the Prump Regional Planning District, that the state of Nevada can come in and make law, right?
Well, it's kind of like that. What the commission did today here in Nye County was they're permitting it, but not within the regional planning district. So it can be within the county, but basically, I guess not in the city of Pahrump. I'm not real familiar with your boundaries here. But what the district attorney was cautioning the board on was that the statute says that an applicant to the state has to show that they are compliant with that county or city's ordinances. If you leave it blank and you don't put anything in there, compliance, then they can go to the state and say, there is no ordinance or zoning requirements in Nye County. And the state says, okay, you meet all the other requirements, and may say, here's your license, and then you end up with a dispensary in a place you didn't necessarily want one to begin with.
So, tell me some of the things that you mostly think that people should be paying attention to with this law, because you authored it, right?
Well, it was Senator Tick Seger-Bloom and Senator Mark Hutchinson are the primary sponsors. I did support it and vote for it on the floor in the House. But I think the things that people need to understand and realize that the impetus of this bill is to provide medicine to patients who have qualified to receive it. And so counties and cities who are entertaining the idea of permitting this in their jurisdiction should understand that this is solely for medicinal purposes and should take heed on where these dispensaries or cultivation shops are going to be. I think that's important. I think it's also important to understand that it is still a federal crime. And there's a Cole report from Deputy Attorney General from the Justice Department has issued a report basically saying that, medical marijuana users are not our priority of enforcement. And we understand that more and more jurisdictions are doing this. And they're going to remain a low priority if you stay within the confines of your state's regulatory system and statutes. And here are things that you should abide by. And those things were distances from schools or places where children congregate, parks, things like that, family activities. These are things that people should take into account that sit on the boards or county commissions and are making their regulations.
Because there's still laws that are out there, driving under the influence. If you're within the school district zones, these are crimes that you can still be convicted of.
Absolutely. You can have a medical marijuana card and buy from a legal dispensary which got their product from a legal cultivator, but if you get behind the wheel of a car and under your under the medicine that you're using, you can still be charged and convicted of driving under the influence. That has not changed.
And isn't that similar to taking even over-the-counter medication or a prescription from your doctor if you're taking a medication that says, do not drive a vehicle while taking this medication?
There's one slight difference. That is the same. You can still be convicted of driving under influence under other prescribed medicines. Only difference with cannabis is there are per se limits, meaning that when they draw your blood and they find THC in your system, there's a per se limit there that says you are impaired. Regardless of if you're actually impaired or not, let's say you smoked last night, but that amount is still in your blood system today, the burden will be upon you to show that you're not impaired. It's an automatic that you're considered impaired.
When you're going to these meetings, and I'm sure that you've been showing up to a lot of them to find out what's going on with different counties and stuff like that, are you finding that there's a constant that people are kind of going along the same lines? Or do you find that people are getting information from the other counties to kind of get some advice? Or are you giving some advice?
It's a little bit of everything, Clark County has kind of been taking the lead a little bit on this and their regulations, so stepping out. They're the largest portion of the state, and then you have City of Las Vegas has a moratorium, but they've been shadowing Clark County. And yes, I get phone calls from those who are interested in entering into the arena to open a business, to citizens that are concerned about marijuana shops opening up in their neighborhoods, and here in Nye County, being invited to come to provide some clarity if needed on what the intent of the statute was and what I see is happening when these other jurisdictions are trying to get through this process and get the system going.
One of the things that the state of Nevada had in their statutes or their regulations was that they didn't have a separation of some of the cultivating facilities inside residential neighborhoods.
That's taken care of in regs. There are distance requirements from, like I said, from schools and churches and parks and even in Clark County. It also, one of the things people forget is there isn't any prohibition from a local municipality to make a greater restriction than what the state has done. So in Clark County, you can have it in the gaming enterprise district as well. While it may be in Clark County, there are certain areas that even though you're within the distance requirements and other things, if it's inside the gaming enterprise district, you can't have a facility there.
And today, the Town Board, if I hear correctly, or no, the Board of County Commissioners decided not to have a separation in the residential districts, which one of them was recommended for 300 feet, right?
Well, I'm not sure, they're mirroring the state regs
Yeah.
in that regard on that. So I wouldn't say that there are not any restrictions in residential communities.
But they're going to go with what the regulations are for the state of Nevada. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I encourage people to continue to monitor what's going on in their jurisdictions and participate in this. The train's moving pretty fast now. The state's getting ready to probably in the next couple of months send out notices that they're going to start accepting applications. That window is going to be 10 days long to apply. Once that window closes, then they have 90 days in which to approve applicants for licensure. And then we're off to the races on who's going to get approved and set it up. It's going to be a learning process. There's going to be some pangs. There are going to be some hiccups in this because this is new for our state. But only when we see where we should have done something differently or better, then we can make those corrections either next legislative session in 2015 or at your county or city council.
Thank you.